It may have already happened, not confirmed, not in any official index, but Barron's did the calculation on May 22nd, 2026, the same day Starship Flight 12 launched, and the same day Robert Frank went on CNBC to walk through the arithmetic, and the number they produced was this. Musk's 6.4 billion SpaceX shares, valued at how the company has been trading on private markets, are worth approximately $830 billion. Add his Tesla holdings. Add in the $290 billion his Tesla position carries. The sum is $1.1 trillion. For the first time in the recorded history of human wealth, one person may have crossed the $1 trillion threshold, and the world's financial databases are still catching up. Bloomberg's Billionaires Index puts Musk's net worth at $722 billion because Bloomberg only counts assets that have traded recently in verifiable transactions, and SpaceX has not yet priced its IPO. The number is real. The methodology is conservative. And both numbers, $722 billion and $1.1 trillion, are currently correct within their own frameworks. The question of whether Musk is the world's first trillionaire is not a math question. It is a question about which mathematics you accept. And the IPO that is coming in late June or early July will answer it definitively in a price set by the public market for everyone. This is the full story of the math, asset by asset, step by step, asset 1, SpaceX itself. The S1 filed on May 20th, 2026 retroactively adjusted all share figures for a 5-for-1 stock split that occurred on May 4th. After the split, Musk holds approximately 6.4 billion Class B shares of SpaceX. Class B shares carry 10 votes each. They are economically identical to Class A shares in terms of their claim on company assets and earnings. They just carry more voting power. At the IPO target valuation of $175 trillion, a simple division across SpaceX's total post-split share count gives an implied price per share. Musk's 42% economic stake at $175 trillion is approximately $735 billion from a loan. At $2 trillion, the upper end of the range that Polymarket currently assigns a 60% probability, the SpaceX contribution to Musk's net worth is approximately $840 billion. Polymarket's prediction market has been tracking the IPO valuation with unusual precision. The $1.75 trillion to $2 trillion band commands 60% implied probability as of late May 2026. The sub-$1.25 trillion outcome is priced at less than 2%. Meaning the market considers a heavily discounted public debut essentially ruled out. A separate Polymarket question on whether SpaceX or Tesla carries the higher valuation by June 30th gives SpaceX a 92.5% probability of having the larger market cap. Tesla, which was Musk's primary wealth engine for years, is now the secondary asset in the portfolio. There is also a $20 billion bridge loan referenced in the S1, entered in March 2026 with repayment tied to qualified IPO proceeds. This means SpaceX has a time-sensitive financial obligation that makes the IPO timing not just strategic, but contractually necessary. The IPO must close, the proceeds must come in, the bridge loan must be repaid. This is not a company that can delay the listing indefinitely to wait for better market conditions. The March 2026 bridge loan is the financial clock running underneath the entire IPO process. Asset 2, Tesla, Robert Frank's CNBC Math, delivered in his segment on May 22nd titled Elon Musk's Trillionaire March, was specific. Musk owns approximately 12% of Tesla with options for another 8%. Call it 20% total economic exposure to Tesla at the margin. At Tesla's current market capitalization, approximately $1.3 to $1.5 trillion, depending on the trading day, 20% is approximately $260 to $300 billion. Frank's number was $300 billion from Tesla. The Texie analysis from early April 2026 used $290 billion as the Tesla contribution. Tesla has been a complicating factor in the wealth calculation for reasons that have nothing to do with SpaceX. Tesla's stock has underperformed the broader market significantly since Musk began his more prominent role in U.S. government affairs through Doge. Consumer boycotts in Europe, declining sales in China, and the perception among some investors that Musk's attention is diverted from Tesla's operational challenges have weighed on the stock. The S1 itself disclosed that SpaceX spent $131 million purchasing Tesla Cybertrucks in 2025 and $697 million on Tesla Megapack battery systems. Transactions that technically support Tesla revenue, but that also reveal a financial entanglement between the two companies that raises governance questions for investors in both. The bear case on Musk's Tesla stake is that any continued decline in Tesla's market cap reduces his total net worth even as SpaceX's IPO adds to it. A 20% decline in Tesla from current levels would reduce the Tesla contribution to Musk's net worth by approximately $50 to $60 billion. Meaningful, but not enough to prevent the trillion crossing if SpaceX prices at or above $1.75 trillion. Asset 3, the other holdings. Beyond SpaceX and Tesla, Musk holds equity stakes in several other ventures. Neuralink, the brain-computer interface company, has not yet had a public valuation event. X, the social media platform formerly known as Twitter, is now technically owned by SpaceX following the corporate restructuring that absorbed XAI and X into the combined entity. X's contribution to Musk's personal wealth is embedded in the SpaceX valuation rather than being a separate line item. Boring Company, Musk's tunneling infrastructure company, has an estimated private valuation in the range of $5 to $10 billion, a small number relative to the SpaceX and Tesla positions. The aggregate of the smaller positions is not irrelevant, but is not the deciding factor in whether the trillion milestone is reached, the number itself. Here's the math done 3 ways. Conservative. SpaceX IPO at $1.5 trillion. Musk's stake at 42% equals $630 billion from SpaceX. Add Tesla at $270 billion. Add other holdings at $20 billion total. Approximately $920 billion trillion not reached. Close. Base. SpaceX IPO at $1 or $75 trillion. Musk's stake at 42% equals $735 billion from SpaceX. Add Tesla at $290 billion. Add other holdings. Total, approximately $1.45 trillion crossed, comfortably. Bull, SpaceX IPO at $2 trillion. Musk's stake at 42% equals $840 billion from SpaceX. Add Tesla. Total, approximately $1.15 trillion. Trillion crossed decisively. The 72% Apollo market probability of Musk becoming a trillionaire before the end of 2026 reflects the 60% probability of the $1.75 trillion or higher IPO outcome combined with the roughly 10% T probability that Tesla appreciation and other assets get him there even at a $1.5 trillion SpaceX valuation. The math converges on one conclusion. Absent a significant market-wide sell-off or a dramatic SpaceX IPO disappointment, Elon Musk becomes the world's first trillionaire in 2026, probably in late June or July, probably the day SpaceX prices its IPO. Now the historical context. Because this number requires context to be understood. The previous record holder for individual wealth, as a fraction of the total global economy of his time, is John D. Rockefeller. At the peak of Standard Oil in the early 20th century, Rockefeller's fortune was estimated at approximately 1.5 to 2% of U.S. GDP. In today's dollars, that is equivalent to approximately $300 to $400 billion. Musk, at $1.1 trillion, is approximately 3 times richer than the richest person in modern history in inflation-adjusted terms. His fortune approaches the combined wealth of the next 4 wealthiest people. On the Bloomberg Billionaires Index, which currently stands at approximately $934 billion for the group of 4. The gap between first and second on the wealth ranking, between Musk and whoever is currently second, is larger in absolute dollar terms than the entire net worth of the second richest person. This kind of wealth concentration has not existed in the modern capitalist era. The speed of accumulation is equally remarkable. Techi's analysis documents the trajectory. Musk went from $500 billion to $800 billion in 4 months, a pace of wealth creation that has no precedent. The XAI-SpaceX merger in February 2026 added approximately $400 billion to his implied net worth in a single transaction. Because the merger revalued SpaceX from roughly $800 billion to $1.25 trillion, and Musk's stake grew proportionally. From the December 2025 tender offer that implied an $800 billion SpaceX valuation to the May 2026 IPO target of $1.75 trillion is a 6-month doubling of his primary asset's assessed value. No individual wealth in recorded history has grown this quickly in absolute terms. The trillion-dollar milestone is not without controversy. 2 specific challenges to the number deserve to be stated honestly. The first is liquidity. A net worth of $1 trillion does not mean Musk has $1 trillion in accessible cash. His wealth is concentrated in large illiquid positions, equity stakes in private companies that cannot be instantly sold at current valuations. Selling a large block of SpaceX shares immediately after the IPO would move the market significantly against him, meaning the price he would receive for, say, 10% of his position is much lower than the implied price from the current valuation. This is true of every large controlling shareholder in public markets. It does not make the wealth less real. It makes it less liquid than the headline number implies. The second is governance. Musk's 85.1% voting power, the number disclosed in the S1, higher than the 79% figure that had been previously reported, reflecting the updated post-split share structure, means that his control over SpaceX extends far beyond his economic stake. This creates a situation where the value of a Class A SpaceX share purchased by a public investor is partially a function of what Musk decides to do with the company. If he decides to spend $50 billion on Mars infrastructure that generates no near-term revenue, public shareholders have no mechanism to stop him. The trillion-dollar fortune is therefore built on assets whose value is partly a function of decisions made by one person operating with essentially unchecked authority over those assets. That is the governance structure that the S1 disclosed in full, and that every investor in the IPO must accept as the terms under which the trillion-dollar fortune operates. Roadshow begins June 4th, 2026, according to Fortune. IPO pricing will follow the roadshow, typically within 2 weeks of the roadshow start. That puts the IPO pricing in late June, the date on which Elon Musk officially, unambiguously, by any reasonable methodology becomes the world's first trillionaire, is therefore, barring a dramatic market reversal. Approximately 4 to 5 weeks from now, assuming Polymarket's collective is right, assuming the base case holds, assuming no SpaceX-specific crisis materially reduces the valuation between now and pricing, the arithmetic is settled, the history is being written, and 4 to 5 weeks from now, a number that has never existed in the story of human wealth, a personal fortune of 1 followed by 12 zeros, will be assigned to one specific person on a specific morning late June, in whatever city the roadshow is visiting when the books close and the price is set. The world's first trillionaire will likely be the man who wants to die on Mars, not peacefully in old age. His stated preference is to go there and not come back. The trillion-dollar fortune that the public market is about to confirm is, in his framing, not an end. It is the capital base for a project that may not produce a financial return for decades, if ever. The words of his own legal document. The richest person in human history is building the money to do a thing that he himself says may never make money. Whether that makes him visionary or reckless or both is the question the market is answering right now, one institutional order at a time, across the roadshow that begins June 4th. The math says trillion. The history books will decide what the trillion was for. There is one more dimension to this story that the wealth coverage has not fully explored. The employees. Fortune's analysis, published on May 22nd, was not just about Musk. It was titled, "Musk may already be a trillionaire while these SpaceX employees and investors will hit multi-billion-dollar jackpots after the blockbuster IPO." The IPO does not create one fortune. It creates hundreds of them. SpaceX employees who received equity, compensation over the years, restricted stock units, options, direct equity grants, are sitting on positions that will become publicly liquid for the first time when the company lists. The engineers who built Raptor 3, the technicians who assembled Booster 19, the software teams that run Starlink's constellation management. Many of them have been at SpaceX for years, accumulating equity at valuations that ranged from a few $1 billion in the early years to hundreds of billions more recently. The IPO transforms paper wealth into real wealth for a significant number of people in South Texas, in Hawthorne, California, in Redmond, Washington, and in the other SpaceX facilities scattered across the country. The number of SpaceX employees who will become millionaires from the IPO is not public. The number who will become multimillionaires is larger than at any comparable tech company IPO in history, given SpaceX's size, the duration of its private period, and the accumulated equity grants across 18 years of operation since the first. Falcon 1 launched in 2008. The number who will cross into the tens of millions or above is significant. This is how wealth gets distributed in a technology company IPO, not evenly, not fairly by most definitions, but in proportion to tenure and seniority and the equity packages that were negotiated in early years when the risk of working for a company trying to build reusable rockets was much higher, and the compensation had to reflect that risk. The trillion-dollar number at the top of the distribution is the headline. The hundreds of multi-million-dollar paydays below it are the mechanism by which a successful private company goes public and distributes the wealth it created to the people who built it. On the day SpaceX prices its IPO in late June 2026, Elon Musk crosses a threshold no human has ever crossed. Below him, a few hundred other people will have their lives materially changed in ways that the headline number never captures. Both things are part of the same event. The math says a trillion for one. The reality is also millions for many. And it all begins when the roadshow closes its books.